Hi, everybody. It's been quite some time since I have done a video about anything to do with the publishing or Akashic or the Heavenly Bride. Wait. Gotta get my glass of sweet tea here. This is the only way to drink sweet tea. The only way. I want to talk to you guys about anthology publishing. What happened recently that got me making this video is that I had joined a Facebook group as I have been expanding my world a little bit, maybe socializing a little bit with like people that aren't publishers or whatever, which means socializing period because I haven't been socializing. And the person who was heading this group revealed that she was getting ready to publish an anthology. And she asked if there would be an interest, and I was like, yeah, sounds good to me, but I personally wouldn't do it because of chasing royalties. And that's when she explained that she didn't do that. She would just give a lump sum, have the person submitting their work sign a document saying they don't have rights to the book. Easy peasy, all is well and good. They get a portion from a crowdfunding run, and it's over. And I could see that if that was the royalties you get from all you're doing is publishing from the crowdfunding. The reason why I'm sitting here is because I said, well, back when I was young and pretty, which would be the 80s and early 90s, you would chase royalties for time out of mind, and so good luck to her. And I didn't think nothing of it. Times have changed, you know. A lot of the places that are trying to become, out there and get past the gatekeeping of the big guys, they're only able to offer like maybe 4 cents a word if you're lucky, 1 cent normally, and usually we'll publish you for free. A lot of what goes on is predatory after a fashion, but it also has been a thing with zines and the lower scale publishing that you could expect that because people are on a budget and you're really just putting out your stuff for the love of putting out your stuff, or being able to say, hey, I'm published. Hey, I'm a published person. Can somebody please now look at my stuff? Because sometimes that does matter still. So I've done crowdfunding. I've funded a couple of books through crowdfunding. You get the lump sum. Everybody that's their work is in the crowdfunding. You do your share like little pirates. You publish the amount of books that you had said you're going to publish. One time deal off, right? But what if that book is print on demand? What if that book is perpetually published from then on? How are you counting the person's royalties? For those of you who follow Akashic and the Heavenly Bride and know that I've been a self-publisher since, the 90s somewhere, maybe even the late 80s when I used to do zines. I also used to send my work into Marion Zimmer Bradley. Yes, I know some people think her name is smut, but for me, as a 14 and 15-year-old on up, she was instrumental in helping me learn how to write better, her and her crew. And there are some other elbows I've rubbed over the years. And I may not be the most successful author, writer, creator out there, but I've been around and I've learned a few things. And I don't know everything, but I do know about a little, tiny little bit about how royalties used to work. And also the very long, drawn-out process of sending your shit in for rejections. I have had many rejections, and that's one reason why I struck out on my own, even though my work sucked. It wasn't that I hated the rejections. I actually liked the feedback. It was the process. The process. Sometimes I still do it, and I still get rejections, but I don't really do it enough to know if I have a success rate or not. I've been sending out poetry lately. We do have a lot of industries out there that are trying to take advantage of would-be authors. Lately, Smashwords has went and become draft to digital, and they were bought out, which it's been a long run, and the owner, Mark, was probably ready to move along. Smashwords really did, well, smash some of the gatekeeping. Of course, thanks to Smashwords and many other aggregators out there, the industry also got a little oversaturated, a lot of times with people who don't believe in checking their work, sadly. So things have changed. We have self-publishing platforms that take a percentage. There are some self-publishing platforms that expect you to pay up front. There are so-called review forums filled with so-called reviewers who don't read very well. I'm saying this from experience that you have to be careful of, because they have a predatory practice of the way they handle things. And through it all, cutting it through it all, I at least want to discuss the royalties of anthologies as per a contact who still publishes today, who used to work with Marion Zimmer Bradley. I have my notes from our email exchange. Now, I'm not going to say their names. I'm not going to do any name dropping. So either believe me or don't. But I highly recommend that if you are being approached by someone whose exercises are looking a little bit like you might be getting taken advantage of, then you need to do a little bit of research and find out exactly what the industry truly demands on the professional levels, and then decide what you are willing to give up and willing to do for the sake of seeing your words in virtual print. Rule number 1, and this is a rule I have mentioned before: if you have to pay for it, it is not publishing, it's vanity publishing. Now, vanity publishing isn't always bad. You can check my memory on this. I could be wrong, but I believe A Tale of Two Cities was vanity publishing. One of the classics that we read was vanity publishing. I don't remember which book it was. However, if you're trying to be a professional author, even after all this time, after places like Smashwords and other aggregators broke the gatekeeping a little bit, it still can look bad on you. So do keep that in mind if you're aiming for higher. Personally, I'm all about the self-publishing, but I never have money to pay for the vanity publishing. I had used my income tax once when I was really young for Black Wolf, Silver Fox, just because I really just wanted to see some paper books of it, and Smashwords, etc. didn't exist yet. These days, with the many options that we have, I would never consider it. Understand, though, with my little small-time venture, the Writers of the Apocalypse, I work with Ingram, and Ingram has the largest distribution in the world. So I've managed to get around just a little bit. I just don't have a lot of money to get around much further. So let me go through my notes, and I am going to list the points that were given to me that you should know about how it is understood through my contact how the industry works today. Looking at my notes. Notes. The most common professional publishing model that the big guys and others who are on a professional level still do is something along the lines of, you send your book or your story in to the anthology or as a standalone book. Let's say that I'm going to send in the sequel to Black Wolf and Silver Fox that never got finished. Don't kill me! I'm going to name it Rory's Rough Ride in Fairyland. Oh, take that as you will. So I send in Rory's Rough Ride in Fairyland, and it's accepted by some strange miracle. Now, what happens then is after signing contract and agreements are made, and a lot of times if you're able to get a agent is to step in and help you negotiate better, to do that and get yourself an agent. If you haven't gotten one already, you will get an advance. So let's say that I got a $5,000 advance for my book, Rory's Rough Ride in Fairyland. And from there out, what happens is they're going to depend on sales. And royalties from those sales will accumulate. However, that advance is just that, an advance. It's not free money. So you don't see any more money until the sales reach $5,000. Now, I know in the music industry, if you don't hit that $5,000 mark, you may have to pay the difference back. I'm pretty sure since an advance is an advance in advance in the publication industry, it's probably closely the same thing. That's the typical. The same thing goes with your short story. Now, different professionals who publish anthologies would calculate their royalties based on different ways. The way Marion Zimmer Bradley's used to do it was they did it according to how many words were in the story, so that it was this 500-word story was this much a percentage of the amount of the final book, and this 1,000-word story was a greater percentage. And so royalties were calculated through this wonderful math that would probably make Stephen Hawking's proud of how much you're going to get. Personally, if it were me, I probably would take a smaller advance to start with. It isn't that I don't feel that my work wouldn't earn any money, but although when you're a first-time published author in the big guys and your first time on the shelves like that, you tend to not make as good as, say, Stephen King, whose name is out there. But I would do that because that way, well, once I meet the threshold, I would get bigger royalty checks. Let me tell you, those checks going through perpetuity, they're better when they're bigger. Back to the notes. I was told of one person whose name was mentioned who, whenever they do an anthology, they will buy work for hire. He buys the work for a work for hire basis, but still after when it's all done, he still will pay out royalties. There was one author mentioned that she writes for a rather popular anthology, and it's work for hire. But she also gets an advance on publication, and then she gets royalties once the book has earned out that advance. Generally, if it's possible, the publisher will buy first rights. Some publishers will do your story if it's been printed before, but overall, in my modern experience recently, that's not normally the case. There's just so many stories out there, and there's just so many authors out there that your story may be the best written since Ernest Hemingway, but there's a lot to choose from. And the publishers are going to choose first rights because they're going to want their stuff to be shiny, and they're going to want people to come for it to read something they've never read before. And then after publication, rights normally do revert back to the author. So the anthology that I absolutely adored when I was a kid, Sword and Sorceress, which was one of Marion Zimmer Bradley's publications, if I had somehow managed to get good enough at my young age to get into that anthology, I would have seen an advance, and then rights to my story would have reverted back to me after it was published. But I wasn't told whether or not this was after a period of time. I do know that with one of the standard contracts that I have used, the rights to the book or story would revert after about 7 years. One time it was 2 years, depending on the author and the story. Actually, with the books that I have, I'm only still publishing them as a courtesy. And if the authors come to me and say, hey, I would like to put my book somewhere else, and then all I have to do is shut down the book, because rights reverted quite some time ago. But we're on an understanding that I'm still paying royalties, but of course nothing sells, so there's nothing to pay. Now let's talk rates. Rates. Lovely, lovely, lovely rates. You know wait. I gotta get my Southern fix. Okay? Give me a minute. This is money we're talking here. This is serious business. We gotta talk money for a minute. Let me tell you. When I started trying to submit again recently, I found that a lot of places were lucky to offer 1 cent a word, or I'll publish you for free. I'll publish you for a copy of our book, which is also a form of vanity publishing, which I don't mind personally. I mean, I think it would be cool, but that's only because I self-published, so whatever. What I was told when I asked about that was that, yes, once upon a time it was 4 cents a word. And I remember those days, 4 cents a word. But now the going rate is somewhere around 6 to 7 cents a word, give or take. If you've written a really long story, that 7 cents can add up. Truth is, if you've written a long story, that 4 cents can add up. But let's face it, that extra 3 cents would really make a bigger check. It would be really, really, really nice. And that's how my contact is given to understand the industry still works. Now, she still publishes, so I'm given to understand she kind of knows at least how they do it, where she's at, but she also referenced at least 2 other contacts of hers that also still publish in the more professional arenas. I'm given to understand, and this is a far cry because this was not told to me by my contact, that promoting yourself as an author is still on you, which only makes sense. That's one reason why you get an agent. The problem with getting an agent is you have to be published in order to get an agent. And sometimes in order to get published, you have to have an agent. It's like a credit score. The onus is on you to have a website. The onus is you to have a public presence. The onus is on you to watch your mouth and not sabotage things like a certain friend of mine does. If you're going to be in the public eye, and as a writer and an author, you will be in the public eye. I mean, there are ways. You could never show your face. You could have a mysterious identity. But people like that face. People like meeting you to get your John Hancock. People like asking you questions about your stories. If they're good fans, they like speculating without telling you how to write, if they're good fans. But when it comes to the publication part, the part of seeing your book or your story actually on paper or digitally put out through the big guys, that is for the publisher to do. They are the ones, after all, making money off of your hard work. Which means that if someone is publishing an anthology and they are continuing to publish that book after their agreed upon initial run, and you're not getting royalties, it's probably a predatory practice. But again, let me reiterate on this because I do want to give someone the benefit of the doubt, censorship or not, that publishing with a crowdfunding campaign run and sharing the money that is raised, putting out the book only for the run, and leaving it at that, that's a lot more fair. And that can be seen. But you as an author need to be wary. And that's it from the time that you have not seen me. Now to give you some quick news on Heavenly Bride. I've got literally 1 minute left on my phone here. The website was eaten up by updates. Yeoman's freaking cannon exploded and everything's destroyed. And so I'm having to start over. So I don't know the approach I'm going to do yet. Cross your fingers. I just don't know. I'm, of course, open to suggestions. You can go to my Patreon and drop them in. Alrighty. Bye-bye now.